Intentions. These are a person's goals or purposes or aims. To intend means to stretch toward something. We could use some alternative words like motivations or desires. Intentions are close to the heart of who we truly are in our spirits. And yet the average person is often unaware of what their intentions are. When Jesus called out the Pharisees for looking clean on the outside but dirty on the inside, he calls us out also. We are called to take a look at what's really inside. The outside of the cup is where we find our actions and our words. The inside of the cup is where we find our intentions. That's where we discover what we really care about and love. The problem is that it can be hard at first to tell what our intentions are. You see, we often confuse our excuses and rationalizations for our intentions. And this is where we get into the story of Saul and the Amalekites. At the beginning of our story from 1 Samuel, the Lord commands Saul to utterly destroy the Amalekites. He refers back to a time when the Israelites were walking in the wilderness and the slower people would walk at the back. Well, the Amalekites would attack the back of the company where the older, slower, and weaker people were walking, and then they would run away. And now, many, many years later, in today's story, it is now Saul's duty to wipe those wicked people out. So Saul does it. He goes on the mission. And afterwards, when Samuel comes to him, Saul seems pretty confident that he has done what the Lord asked of him. Samuel, however, quickly points out that he failed in his mission. God doesn't just ask us. He commands us to get rid of bad habits and utterly destroy them. In actual fact, the Lord is the one who wins battles and changes our hearts, but we have to really want the Lord to do that for us. If we want to hold on to certain habits, the Lord will not take them away from us. The Amalekites are a picture of false ideas that lead us to do evil. Basically, when we justify the suffering that we cause another person, we're creating a lie in order to permit our evil. It's sneaky, and it looks like truth to us, but it's the Amalekites. So what's going on with Saul in our story here? What were his motivations? This is important because it's a similar thing that we tend to do with our intentions. So let's take a look. When Saul first sees Samuel after the mission, he basically greets him with, "It's great to see you, Samuel. I did it." This is interesting here. Does Saul actually believe he did it? Or is he trying to pull one over on Samuel? The answers start to come out as the story continues. Well, this is where we are. We are indeed a jumbled mess of intentions, and our intentions essentially come from two main sources, heaven or hell. And the thing is that a single action or a single word we say can be made up of many layers of intentions. We may consciously experience or believe that we have a certain intention, but as we start to peel away layers and dig deeper, we find other intentions down deeper. And the deeper you go, the more you discover your true self. The story continues, and Samuel starts to dig. Samuel calls Saul out on all the livestock and spoil that the Israelites took from their raid, and Saul explains that they only saved the best ones to offer to the Lord. What a noble and God-fearing thing to do, right? God said, utterly destroy everything, and he did, except for the ones that he didn't destroy and that he's offering to the Lord. This is where excuses and rationalizations can be confused for our true intentions. We invent a plausible and spiritually good scenario that masks what is going on underneath. The sneakiness and cleverness of this whole thing is that we actually believe it. Or we tell ourselves that we actually believe it. And we will continue to defend it. We learn to do this from a young age, and we do it throughout our lives. We do something wrong, and instead of taking proper responsibility for it, we create a seemingly valid excuse for it. She started it. He deserved it. I wasn't trying to hurt him, but... Well, Samuel won't take any excuses from Saul. He says, "Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord?" And Saul then comes out with the truth in the end. "I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord because I feared the people and obeyed their voice." There it is. He obeyed the voice of the people instead of the voice of the Lord. He was more worried about what people thought of him, and thus his status in this world, than in what was truly right. And it wasn't just the livestock that the Israelites saved. Saul saved the Amalekite king. An aspect of the story that is important to notice is that Saul basically mostly got rid of the Amalekites, but that he ultimately didn't finish the job. If we return to our dirty cup analogy, it would be like partly or mostly cleaning filth out of a cup and then saying it's good enough to drink out of. In the human analogy, it's like mostly quitting a bad habit, but not willing to let go of it entirely. Those who attend various self-help groups know that when you are trying to quit a bad habit, you can remove all temptations from your personal space, but if you continue to spend time with people who enjoy the same bad habit, your quitting won't last long. There's no such thing as kind of quitting. Let's take for example an individual who struggles with gossiping. They know that it is hurtful, and they have heard the verse in Leviticus 19 that says, "You shall not go about as a talebearer among your people." And they also know they do it because it gives them a sense of higher status when they know information that someone else doesn't know yet and they get to share it. So they decided to give up gossiping, and instead, they've decided that they'll just share news with friends so that they can get the help that they need. Isn't that so thoughtful? There's another individual who struggles with anger and spiritual murder. And so they practice reciting peaceful quotes from the Word at society meetings to control their feelings about what's going on in the community. And later that night, they go on social media with choice but honest words about the direction of the society. And it's not anger, it's zeal, because they just care about the society. And another individual we'll consider struggles with lust. Of course, there's a commandment against adultery. And Jesus says looking at someone lustfully is tantamount to committing adultery. But it'll be okay to watch movies with licentious scenes or that treat adulterous relationships lightly, because if they didn't watch any of those movies, then they practically wouldn't be able to watch anything at all. And it's just a movie anyway, and they aren't real people, they're just actors. A final individual is a public speaker whose job it is to teach others how to live by offering examples of real problems they have, but is none too perfect himself. Whatever the appearance of goodness is on the outside, the Lord knows if we are obeying his voice for real. We can deceive others and we can even deceive ourselves, but our intentions are what they are, and the Lord knows them. As the Israelites saved the best animals in this story, we like to hold on to the good feelings we get from our evils. And we say that they are for the Lord and for good purposes, and we are only fooling ourselves. When we hold on to those good feelings, we also hold on to the king and the power it has over us. If you ever want to change, you are going to have to start by being honest with yourself. Some final thoughts about intentions. Intentions are something for us to judge about ourselves, not about someone else. As was stated in our reading from the book Conduit to Love, the same action done by multiple people may have as many multiple intentions behind them. We cannot judge someone else's intentions because that becomes a spiritual judgment, one we cannot make. When we declare that it's okay to judge another person's actions but not their spiritual character, we ought to be very careful that this really is our intention. Bear in mind that someone else might not even know their own intentions. Remember those layers we talked about? An outer layer might be, I'm just being zealous for what's right. And an unknown layer underneath might be, I'm angry because they aren't doing what I want. And an even deeper unknown layer under that might be, I'm sad and lonely and I just wish someone would care for me. If knowing our intentions is as messy as it sounds, then where do we start? Here are some of Jeff's thoughts. Number one, start with the Lord's Word and some prayer. I've heard it's a good habit to read and pray every day. Number two, be aware of your feelings in different situations. How do you feel when things don't go your way? How do you feel when someone you don't like has good luck? Are you generally happy, upset, bitter, or sarcastic? Our feelings show us a little bit what's going on underneath. And number three, here's an invitation. Try engaging in a spiritual growth group of some sort. Here we are in a religious community. We are here for each other, and God is our center. Yes, your spiritual life is as private as you want it to be. But as we heard from heaven and hell in our readings, our love and faith, which are on the inside, are not complete until they are also on the outside. And spiritual growth groups and Bible studies can be a useful way to bring our internal spiritual life out into our natural life. It's just an invitation. The Lord is not asking for perfect intentions. He knows us, and He loves us infinitely. What He does ask us is to be aware of what's really going on inside, to not make excuses and allowances for the bad spiritual habits that we find, and to be humble enough to ask for His help. As we said in our recitation, the sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart, O God, you will not despise. Amen.